The academy locker room smelled of sweat, soap, and the faint tang of industrial disinfectant. Rows of lockers gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights, but at this late hour the space felt almost haunted, the echoes of clanging metal stretching long and thin. Cadet Tyler Ricks had just finished the evening drills, muscles burning, lungs rasping, mind foggy from exhaustion. He was ready to shower, change, and collapse into bed, but something caught his eye. A pair of combat boots sat neatly outside the communal showers. At first, Tyler thought maybe a cadet had forgotten them, no big deal. But then he noticed the pristine alignment, the way the laces were tucked in perfectly, and the weight of the boots. They were clearly expensive and issued only to personnel who had gone through specialized training. Not just anyone at the academy would have boots like these. His brows knitted. The locker room was empty, except for the distant drip of water and the faint squeak of someone moving in the showers. Steam coiled like ghostly fingers across the tile floor. Tyler's curiosity tugged at him. He glanced over his shoulder. Diego and Hudson, two fellow cadets, lingered behind him. "Who's in there?" Hudson whispered, his voice low and tense. "Lights out was 20 minutes ago. Nobody should be." Tyler held up a hand. "SHH, just watch." The three cadets crept closer to the steam-shrouded showers. Through the fogged glass, a tall figure emerged. She stood completely still, almost statuesque. Tyler's stomach dropped. The figure was unmistakably female, but there was something about her posture, rigid, controlled, utterly unflinching, that radiated authority. She moved with a precision that made his jaw tighten. "Ma'am, is someone there?" Tyler called out, trying to mask his fear with authority. No answer, just the faint hiss of water and the slow, deliberate movement behind the glass. The cadets exchanged nervous glances. No female cadets were assigned to this wing, no instructors were supposed to be here at night, and yet there she was, a stranger in their midst. Then the water stopped. A soft click echoed as a shower knob turned. The figure shifted, the outline of her body becoming clearer through the mist. The towel she held seemed to hug her frame with meticulous care. Then, in a motion both graceful and controlled, she stepped closer to the glass, tilting her head slightly as if evaluating intruders. "Who said you could enter?" Her voice cut through the steam like a blade, sharp, calm, and commanding. The words were not angry, but the tone carried an unmistakable weight, the kind that froze people in place. Tyler felt a chill crawl up his spine. He had heard strict voices before, drill instructors, sergeants, even the commandant, but nothing like this. This woman had authority embedded into her very presence. Diego swallowed hard, and Hudson's eyes darted to the nearest exit. The figure stepped out of the shower, towel wrapped securely, revealing more than just her poise. Her shoulders were squared, chest lifted, movements smooth yet purposeful. She didn't hesitate, didn't look surprised. She moved like she belonged here, like the academy itself was a part of her territory. Tyler's gaze flicked downward and froze. A patch on her towel slipped momentarily as she adjusted it, a small emblem glinting through the steam. Blue and gold, a trident insignia. His breath caught. "Guys, do you see that?" he whispered, voice barely audible over the hiss of the vent. Diego squinted. "Is that a seal trident?" Tyler's mind raced. He had seen those insignias in documentaries, in old military history books, in hushed conversations between instructors. That symbol was sacred, reserved for the Navy SEALs, the most elite, lethal, and highly trained warriors the United States had ever produced. And here it was, on a woman standing unafraid in their showers. Before any of them could fully process the sight, she spoke again, her voice soft now but no less authoritative. "You three," she said, "state your names." The words hung in the humid air. It wasn't a question, it was an order. Tyler's pulse pounded in his ears. Tyler Ricks," he stammered, his voice cracking slightly. Diego followed, "Diego Mendoza." Hudson, shaking slightly, said, "Hudson Lee." The woman's eyes swept over them, sharp and assessing, as if she were reading their very intentions, measuring their weaknesses, gauging their fear. It wasn't judgmental, but it was unflinching. She was cataloging them in real time. "Good," she said finally. "At least you know protocol." She stepped past them, boots pressing softly against the wet tiles. The three cadets stumbled slightly as the mist swirled around her. Tyler's mind raced. Why was she here? Why the secrecy? Why the midnight shower appearance? And then she moved to the exit. But as she did, something caught Tyler's eye, a flash of metal, a gleam that was unmistakable. He leaned closer and saw the full emblem, the Navy SEAL trident. His voice was a strangled whisper, "She's a SEAL." Diego's face paled. "No, that can't be real. SEALs are, she's." Hudson shook his head, unable to finish the thought. Tyler's heart hammered in his chest. This was more than a surprise. This was a seismic shift in everything they understood about the academy. A living legend standing in their showers had just evaluated them without a single word. And she had not only moved through them without fear, she had sized them up, assessed their weaknesses, and left them shaken to their cores. A sudden realization hit Tyler. This was not a random visitor. She hadn't wandered in by mistake. She was here for a reason, and that reason might involve them. The steam lingered as the cadets stood frozen, staring at the now empty corridor. The last trace of her presence, the faint scent of antiseptic and something metallic, hung in the air like a warning. Did she even know we were here?" Hudson finally asked, voice trembling. Tyler shook his head slowly. "I don't think she just knew we were here. I think she expected us." Diego swallowed hard, eyes wide. "Expected us? Why?" No one had an answer. The lockers, once mundane, now seemed like barriers between them and something incomprehensibly powerful. Tyler's hands trembled as he touched the combat boots she had left behind, pristine, immaculate, and somehow still warm from use. And then, as they collected their scattered thoughts, the faintest echo of a voice drifted from the hallway. "Remember this feeling," it whispered. Not a warning, not a threat, but a quiet, almost intimate demand. The three cadets looked at each other, faces pale and hearts racing. They had encountered many challenges in training, but nothing like this, nothing like her. Because one thing was certain, whoever she was, whatever she represented, their lives had just changed forever. And as Tyler leaned against the lockers, staring at the faint outline of the combat boots, he realized a truth that sent a shiver down his spine. This woman wasn't just visiting. She was here to test them. And they had no idea what was coming next. Morning light filtered through the tall windows of the academy dormitory, painting pale stripes across the polished wooden floors. The air smelled of disinfectant and early coffee, but nothing could wash away the lingering tension from the night before. Tyler Ricks, Diego Mendoza, and Hudson Lee moved silently through the hallways, each cadet replaying the events of the midnight encounter in their heads. The memory of the figure in the showers haunted them, the authority in her voice, the precision in her movements, the trident insignia that gleamed even through the steam, and most of all, the way she had sized them up like prey, like they were pieces in a puzzle she had already solved. She's not real," Hudson muttered, breaking the silence. His voice trembled. I've heard stories, sure, about some SEALs being legends, but she's here in our showers." Diego shook his head, running a hand over his messy hair. "No way, that was deliberate. Whoever she is, she came for a reason, and she knew exactly what she was doing." Tyler clenched his fists, trying to steady his nerves. He felt an odd mixture of fear and adrenaline, like the night had set something loose inside him, something he couldn't ignore. "I don't think she's here to hurt us," he said slowly. "But we can't even begin to understand what she wants, and honestly, I don't think we want to know." Their conversation was interrupted by the distant sound of the commandant's office door slamming. Every cadet in the academy respected the commandant, a rigid, by-the-book leader who demanded perfection. And the commandant never, ever moved quickly without cause. By the time they reached the auditorium, the room was already buzzing with whispers. Cadets crowded the benches, leaning forward, trying to catch any glimpse of what had transpired. Rumors had spread like wildfire. A female officer had been in the showers at night, a trident insignia had been seen, and apparently some of the night staff had reported strange activity in the locker rooms. Tyler's heart sank as the doors at the front of the room opened, and the commandant strode in. His polished boots echoed against the floor, authority radiating from every motion. Behind him, a figure entered, tall, composed, and moving with the kind of confidence that made even the seasoned instructors look twice. It was her, Lieutenant Commander Reese Dalton. The room fell completely silent, a silence so profound it was almost suffocating. Every cadet instinctively straightened, chairs creaking under the sudden tension. She walked with measured steps, hair pulled back, uniform immaculate, ribbons glinting under the harsh lights. Her eyes scanned the auditorium, calm, unwavering, calculating. "Cadets," the commandant said, his voice steady but tight. "Meet your new intensive training instructor, Lieutenant Commander Reese Dalton." The words barely registered. Tyler's stomach dropped. Reese Dalton. The name was legendary. Documentaries, whispered stories, classified mission briefings he had only glimpsed in briefings at summer programs. She had completed operations that weren't supposed to exist in public records. And here she was, standing right in front of them, as real as the cold linoleum beneath their feet. Diego leaned closer to Tyler. "She's a myth. She can't exist." Tyler shook his head, unable to take his eyes off Reese Dalton. Her gaze swept the room slowly, deliberately. It landed on him for a fleeting second, then shifted to Hudson and Diego as if she could see inside them, read their fears, and calculate their potential all in one glance. "She's studying us," Tyler whispered. Hudson's face went pale. "Studying us, like for what?" Reese Dalton began to speak, her voice low and controlled, yet it carried across the entire auditorium like a drumbeat. "This academy has grown weak, discipline is fatting, resilience is slipping, and I am here to fix that." A murmur ran through the cadets, some incredulous, some terrified. Tyler's pulse pounded in his chest. Every word she spoke was measured, deliberate, and wrapped in a calm authority that made it impossible to ignore. "You will learn discipline," she continued, voice cutting through the whispers like a knife. "You will learn resilience, and by the time I am done, you will either stand as warriors or you will quit." Her eyes scanned the room again, pausing for a heartbeat on Tyler, Diego, and Hudson. The intensity of her gaze made them shift in their seats, almost as if she had seen straight into their souls. "And for some of you," she added quietly, almost a whisper, yet every cadet caught it, "I already know which way you'll bend." The auditorium tightened, breaths caught in throats, hearts hammering in unison. Reese Dalton wasn't just an instructor. She was a force, an unstoppable presence who could intimidate without raising her voice. And the weight of her words left a cold sting in the chest, a warning that something monumental was coming. As the cadets absorbed the gravity of the moment, Reese took a step forward. Every motion was calculated, precise, and deliberate. She moved with the confidence of someone who had faced danger countless times and survived, someone who had stared down chaos and come out on top. Tyler felt a chill run down his spine. Suddenly, Reese raised her hand slightly, drawing their attention. "You will report to the training yard at 500 hours. All drills, all exercises, all expectations will be intensified. Your limits will be tested. Some of you will fail. Some will succeed. But all of you will learn what it truly means to endure." The room seemed to shudder with her words. Even the instructors exchanged uneasy glances. There was something in her tone, a subtle edge of danger, a promise of challenge that went far beyond the normal academy curriculum. Tyler's mind raced. Last night had been a test, he realized. That shower encounter wasn't random. She had assessed them, measured them, seen their reactions, and decided they were worth her attention. Every flicker of fear, every hesitation, she had cataloged it, memorized it. Hudson whispered, barely audible, "Do you think she knows about us already?" Tyler swallowed hard. "I don't think she just knows about us. I think she's been watching for a while. Maybe she predicted we'd be here. Maybe she wanted to see how we'd react under pressure. And if we failed, she wouldn't have blinked." Diego shivered. She's on another level. I mean, we can't even imagine what she's done out there in the field. She's a SEAL, Tyler, a real one." Tyler's gaze returned to her, watching the controlled rhythm of her steps. There was a magnetic, almost intimidating calm about her, and he felt both fear and fascination intertwined in a knot in his stomach. The legends didn't just survive. They commanded. And she had command in every cell of her body, every glance, every word. Reese Dalton stopped at the center of the auditorium. Silence fell like a heavy curtain. She scanned the room once more, and Tyler felt with unnerving clarity that she could see the exact point of hesitation in every cadet, every weakness, every insecurity, every flicker of self-doubt. And then she said, in a voice softer but no less commanding than before, "Remember this moment, the fear, the adrenaline, the uncertainty, because it will be the only certainty you have in the days to come." The words were cryptic, but they left an impression that Tyler could not shake. A storm was coming. He could feel it in the air, in the tightened jaws of the cadets, in the intensity of Reese Dalton's gaze. The commandant finally stepped forward, breaking the spell. "Dismissed," he said, but his voice lacked the usual conviction. Tyler noticed the smallest flicker of tension in the commandant's eyes as he glanced at Reese. Something about her presence unsettled even him. Cadets filed out, whispering, glancing back. Tyler, Diego, and Hudson lingered, unable to shake the sense of being in the orbit of something monumental. Tyler turned to his friends, voice low but urgent. She's going to change everything here, everything." Hudson's eyes widened. "But why us?" Tyler could only shake his head. He had no answer, only a feeling deep in his bones, that Lieutenant Commander Reese Dalton had entered their lives for a purpose they couldn't yet comprehend. And then, as they left the auditorium, Tyler glanced back one last time. Reese Dalton's eyes met his. A faint smirk tugged at the corner of her lips. A smile that was not welcoming, not friendly, but full of promise, challenge, and the kind of danger that could either make them legends or break them entirely. Because Tyler knew one undeniable truth. Their lives had just become part of something far bigger, far more dangerous, and far more real than anything they had ever imagined. And Reese Dalton was at the center of it all. The first morning after the midnight encounter dawned crisp and bright, but the chill in the air couldn't compete with the icy dread lingering in the cadets' minds. Tyler, Diego, and Hudson trudged toward the main auditorium, the sound of their boots on the polished floors echoing like a prelude to a storm. Whispers of the night's events had already reached every corner of the academy, spreading like wildfire. "Did anyone else hear what Commandant said about her?" Diego muttered, keeping his voice low. "New intensive training instructor, Lieutenant Commander Reese Dalton." Hudson shook his head, running a hand through his hair. I can't, that's impossible. SEALs like her don't just stroll into an academy. They're legends. My dad told me stories about her operations, missions nobody's supposed to know about. How is she here?" Tyler's chest tightened. His stomach churned with a mix of fear, admiration, and an adrenaline residue he couldn't shake. "I don't think she's here for us as cadets in the usual sense," he said quietly. "I think she's here to find something, or maybe test something, and somehow we're part of it." As they entered the auditorium, the room was already packed. Cadets were murmuring, craning their necks, whispering among themselves. The legendary officer was no longer a shadow in the showers. She was real, standing in front of them, uniform immaculate, hair tied back with surgical precision, ribbons and medals catching the light like a halo. The commandant's voice cut through the murmurs. "Cadets, this is Lieutenant Commander Reese Dalton. She will oversee intensive training and evaluations going forward. Pay attention and follow instructions carefully." The weight of her presence alone silenced the room. Tyler's eyes remained fixed on her. Reese Dalton didn't just walk. She glided across the floor with a measured, predatory grace. Every step, every breath, every glance conveyed control, authority, and the kind of calm confidence that only comes from someone who had stared death in the face and walked away. "Cadets," she began, her voice low but carrying to every corner, "I am here because the academy has grown soft. Discipline is eroding, composure is fleeting, and resilience is disappearing." The room shivered under her words. Tyler noticed subtle things, her eyes scanning the faces, evaluating posture, micro-expressions, even the smallest shifts in weight as though she could read their very thoughts. "You three," she said suddenly, her gaze locking on Tyler, Diego, and Hudson. The three cadets froze. "You will be under particular observation, not because you're exceptional yet, but because I sense potential, and potential must be tested." Tyler felt a chill run down his spine. "Potential to fail or potential to survive," he whispered under his breath. Diego shushed him, eyes wide, feeling the same prickling sense of being dissected, understood, and anticipated in ways they had never imagined. Hudson swallowed hard. "She knows us already," he whispered, voice trembling. "I mean, she didn't just watch last night, she saw us. Everything." Reese's voice cut through their thoughts. "Your fears, your hesitation, your overthinking, I see it all. And by the end of this training, you will either conquer it or it will conquer you." The cadets exchanged uneasy glances. Tyler felt sweat prick his brow even though the auditorium was cold. He couldn't explain why, but he felt as though every moment of his life, every decision, every mistake, had brought him to this precise point. "And for some of you," Reese added, softer, almost a whisper, "I already know which way you will bend." The words struck them like a blow. Tyler's throat tightened, every muscle in his body tensed. What did she mean? Was she predicting their failures, or was she just testing their resolve even now? Reese took a step closer, her eyes narrowing. "I do not tolerate weakness. I do not tolerate hesitation. And I do not accept excuses. Every movement you make, every decision you take will be scrutinized, not by me alone, but by the consequences of your actions." Tyler's mind raced. She was relentless, methodical, predatory, but there was something else, something almost magnetic about her presence. Fear and fascination intertwined in a knot in his chest. Then came the words that made the cadets' blood run cold and their hearts pound in unison. "You will report to the training yard at 500 hours tomorrow. All drills will be intensified. Physical, mental, tactical. You will face challenges you have never imagined. Some of you will fail. Some will succeed. But all of you will learn what it truly means to endure." The room went silent, the weight of her announcement hanging like a storm cloud above their heads. Even the instructors shifted nervously. It was clear. Reese Dalton was not here to maintain the status quo. She was here to disrupt it completely. Tyler glanced at Hudson and Diego. Their eyes mirrored his own fear, awe, and disbelief. They had all heard the stories about her missions, her exploits, her nearly mythical status. But now the legend was standing before them, assessing them, evaluating them, and setting the stage for a trial none of them had volunteered for. Hudson whispered, voice barely audible, She's going to break us." Tyler shook his head, a strange determination igniting within him. "Maybe, or maybe she's going to make us something more, something we didn't know we could be." Diego's voice was tight with tension. "Or she'll ruin us completely. There's no middle ground with her. I can feel it." Reese paused and let the silence linger, letting her words sink into the cadets' minds like iron into steel. Then, almost imperceptibly, she smiled, a small, subtle curl of the lips, not friendly, not welcoming, but charged with the kind of promise that could change the trajectory of a life. "Remember this moment," she said softly, voice threading through the tension. "The fear, the anticipation, the uncertainty. It will be the only certainty you have in the days to come. Embrace it, or it will consume you." Tyler felt the truth in her words, deep in his bones. He knew she spoke from experience, from hard-earned lessons in places where hesitation meant death, from a life where every choice was the difference between life and obliteration. And now, she was bringing that reality to them. As the cadets were dismissed, Tyler lingered a step behind, unable to tear his eyes away from Reese Dalton. His pulse raced, adrenaline lingering like an electric current. She moved with purpose, leaving the room with the quiet authority of someone who did not answer to anyone. He turned to Diego and Hudson, voice urgent, almost trembling. "We have to be ready. Whatever's coming, it's nothing like anything we've faced before, and if she picked us out, then we're in for something that could change everything." Hudson nodded, swallowing hard. She's a force. I've never felt anything like this. She doesn't just command respect, she demands it, and she can take it. I can feel it." Diego's jaw tightened. "Yeah, and we're going to learn that the hard way. I just hope we survive her training." Tyler's gaze drifted back toward the empty stage, where Reese Dalton had stood. Something in her presence lingered like a shadow stretching across the room, imprinted on the very air around them. He felt it settle deep into his chest, a warning that every choice, every hesitation, every small action from now on would be observed, measured, and judged. And deep down, Tyler realized something terrifying. They had just met a seal. Not just any seal, but a living legend, a warrior shaped by fire, battle, and unthinkable experiences. A woman who had stared death in the face countless times and emerged unbroken. And the question that twisted in his gut, tightening like a vice, was this: why was she here, and what had she planned for them? Because one thing was certain: whatever came next, nothing would ever be the same. The echo of her words reverberated through their minds as they left the auditorium. "Some of you will fail, some will succeed, but all of you will learn what it truly means to endure." And Tyler knew, with a knot in his stomach and a pulse that refused to settle, that the real test was only just beginning. The dawn mist clung to the training yard like a heavy blanket, cold and damp, as Tyler, Diego, and Hudson assembled with the rest of the cadets. The early morning air stung their lungs with each breath, but it was nothing compared to the tension tightening in their chests. They had heard rumors of Reese Dalton's reputation, but nothing could prepare them for the reality. The cadets lined up in formation, boots sinking slightly into the soft, dew-soaked grass. Reese Dalton stood at the front, arms folded behind her back, eyes scanning every face with predatory precision. There was no smile, no greeting, no idle conversation, just a stillness that demanded focus, respect, and fear simultaneously. "Listen closely," Reese began, her voice slicing through the morning air. "This is not your normal drill. I will not teach you as you've been taught before. You will not be pampered. You will not be praised for mediocrity. From this moment forward, every action, every decision, every movement will be evaluated. Mistakes will be punished, not by me, but by consequence." Tyler swallowed hard. Consequence. The word reverberated like a warning bell in his skull. He glanced at Diego and Hudson. Both of them mirrored his unease. Without another word, Reese moved toward the first obstacle, a massive mud-caked wall that towered over the cadets. "Climb it. Alone, fast. Show me who can endure." The cadets hesitated. The wall was higher than anything they had scaled before, the surface slick with morning dew, the top shrouded in mist. It was impossible, or at least, that's what their tired minds screamed. Reese's gaze swept across them. "Start." Tyler's pulse pounded as he sprinted forward, grabbing the first handhold. The wall threatened to swallow him. Every slip sent a shiver down his spine. He felt Diego and Hudson struggling behind him. Sweat stung his eyes, Muscles screamed in protest, and his lungs burned with effort. But Reese didn't move to help. She merely watched, silent, arms folded, every microexpression catalogued. When Tyler finally reached the top, panting, mud streaked across his uniform, Reese's eyes flicked toward him. Not praise, not encouragement, just acknowledgement. And then she gestured toward the next challenge. The cadets were forced into a series of grueling tasks: timed obstacle runs, endurance sprints, crawling under barbed wire, hauling weighted logs, and executing precise tactical drills under relentless observation. Each task pushed them beyond their limits, stripping away layers of fatigue and fear, leaving raw, exposed potential. But the real test wasn't physical, it was psychological. Reese had a way of observing weaknesses, of finding them before anyone else even realized they existed. Tyler felt it acutely. Every hesitation, every doubt, every flicker of indecision was noted, weighed, and filed away. During the rope climb exercise, Tyler hesitated, his hand slipping slightly on the damp fibers. Before he could fall, Reese appeared beside him like a shadow, her grip on the rope steady and sure. "Stop overthinking," she murmured, voice calm but unyielding. "Trust your instincts. Fail fast. Learn faster." Tyler followed her words instinctively, climbing with renewed focus. He reached the top, muscles screaming, heart hammering. When he looked down, Reese was already moving on, watching another cadet, measuring, calculating, teaching without teaching. Diego, meanwhile, struggled in the water survival drill. Panic gripped him as he tried to tread in the freezing pool, adrenaline threatening to overwhelm him. Reese dove in without hesitation, dragging him to the surface with a grip that was firm, unyielding, and terrifyingly controlled. "You breathe shallow when afraid," she said, her eyes locking onto his. "Control that or it will control you." Hudson, crawling through the night navigation course under simulated blackout conditions, froze when the darkness swallowed him. Reese appeared from nowhere, stepping silently, her presence both shocking and reassuring. "You rely on others too much. Find yourself first." By the end of the morning, the cadets were broken, drenched, and shaking, but still moving, still following, still surviving. Every task had been a crucible designed not to teach, but to reveal. Tyler noticed something else. Reese Dalton didn't just teach, they learned together. She ran faster than the fastest cadets, outpulled the strongest, out-endured everyone without breaking a sweat. Her presence alone pushed them harder, made them confront the limitations they had never dared to acknowledge. Then came the mental tests. Reese had a way of dissecting fear, teasing out doubt, and forcing cadets into situations that seemed impossible. She placed them in pitch-black mazes, issued confusing orders that changed mid-execution, and orchestrated simulations of chaotic, high-pressure combat scenarios. Tyler felt his mind fray at one point, spinning as he tried to coordinate with Diego and Hudson while following Reese's instructions. She appeared beside him once again, her eyes sharp, scanning, evaluating. "Stop thinking like a cadet," she said. "Think like an operator, adapt, survive, lead." The cadets had no idea how much time had passed. Hours, days. The world outside the training yard seemed to vanish. Their bodies ached, their minds screamed, and yet Reese Dalton remained a constant, silent force, unbroken, observing, teaching, testing. At the end of the day, she gathered them together on the wet grass. Their bodies trembled from exhaustion, faces streaked with mud and sweat. Tyler's hands shook as he tried to wipe the grime from his eyes, lungs heaving. "Some of you will fail," she said simply. "Some will succeed, but all of you will learn your limits and then surpass them. You will find strength you didn't know existed, and you will learn fear. Embrace both. Without fear, you are blind. Without strength, you are weak." Her eyes swept over Tyler, Diego, and Hudson, narrowing ever so slightly. "You three," she said quietly, "I have watched you closely. You hesitate, you falter, but there is a spark, a potential. It can be refined or it can die under pressure. It is up to you." Tyler felt his chest tighten. A spark. That was all she said, nothing more, but it was enough. Enough to make him feel both terrified and driven beyond reason. Then she gave the final instruction. Tonight, all cadets will rest minimally. Tomorrow, we begin Phase 2. You will learn that the mind is just as crucial as the body, and that survival requires more than strength. It requires instinct, decisiveness, and a willingness to act when all seems lost. As the cadets staggered back to the dorms, Tyler looked at Reese Dalton one last time. She had become more than an instructor. She was a force of nature, a living legend who bent reality around her, and he realized that the training had already begun to change them. But beneath the awe, fear, and exhaustion, one question lingered like a shadow over his thoughts. What exactly was Reese Dalton preparing them for? Because Tyler knew with chilling clarity, whatever it was, it would push them further than they had ever been pushed, and some of them might not survive the trial. And for the first time, Tyler understood the truth about legends. They weren't just survivors of history. They were architects of it. And Reese Dalton was about to forge the next generation in fire, sweat, and unrelenting discipline. The night was thick with fog as Tyler, Diego, and Hudson huddled in their dormitory bunks, trying to suppress the trembling in their limbs. The day's training had left them physically broken, mentally frayed, and emotionally raw. Every muscle ached, every joint screamed, and yet none of it could prepare them for what Lieutenant Commander Reese Dalton had announced as Phase 2, the unknown run. No one knew what it entailed. There were no briefings, no instructions, nothing but a simple order. Be ready at 2300 hours, full gear, no questions. Tyler stared at his boots, scuffed and muddy from the previous day, and whispered to Diego and Hudson, "Do you realize what this could be? We've been pushed physically and mentally, but now, it's the unknown. Anything could happen." Diego swallowed hard. I don't even want to imagine it. Last phase pushed us to the limit. This could destroy us." Hudson's eyes were wide with fear. Destroy us, or break us entirely. Tyler's jaw tightened. He didn't know the answer, but a gnawing certainty grew inside him. Whatever this was, it wasn't just a test. It was a crucible designed to strip away every illusion of security, confidence, and control. By 2300 hours, the cadets assembled in the dimly lit training yard. Reese Dalton was already there, waiting, her figure emerging from the mist like a phantom. Her eyes scanned them silently, piercing, calculating, weighing every flicker of doubt, every spike of adrenaline. "No talking, no hesitation, no complaints," she said, voice cutting through the fog like a blade. "The unknown run is not a drill, it is a test. If you survive, you will have learned something you cannot learn in any classroom, on any obstacle course, or in any controlled simulation." The cadets exchanged uneasy glances. Tyler felt his stomach twist. The unknown run could be anything, from a night navigation exercise to a full-scale survival scenario. But Reese Dalton's reputation suggested it would be far more dangerous than anything they had imagined. "Move out," she ordered, and they followed her silently, shivering through the foggy campus and toward the outskirts of the training grounds. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Tyler had lost all sense of time. The cadets ran through dense woods, climbed over slick rocks, and waded through freezing streams. Reese Dalton never slowed, never faltered, never gave them a moment to rest. She pushed, silently observing, always just ahead, her presence both terrifying and magnetic. At one point, Tyler stumbled on uneven terrain, his ankle twisting sharply. Pain shot through his leg, and he collapsed to the ground, gasping. "Stop," he shouted, fear flaring. Reese Dalton appeared instantly at his side, her movement so fast and precise it was almost supernatural. She grabbed him by the shoulder, steadying him. "You don't stop," she said simply, her eyes locking onto his. "You adapt, you endure, you move forward or you fail. Do you want to fail?" Tyler shook his head, adrenaline surging through the pain. "No." "Then get up," she commanded. Her grip was firm, unyielding. "And run." With gritted teeth and shaking limbs, Tyler pushed himself forward. Every step was agony, every breath a challenge. But he forced himself to keep pace, knowing that Reese Dalton's eyes were on him, watching, judging, testing. Diego and Hudson struggled nearby, slipping and sliding through mud and water, but Reese Dalton remained relentless. She demanded perfection not through words, but through example. Every motion, every decision, every survival instinct had to be executed flawlessly, or suffer the consequences. Hours into the unknown run, the cadets found themselves in a dense forest. Darkness enveloped them completely. The only light came from a faint moon glimmering through the canopy. Suddenly, Reese Dalton halted, raising a hand. "Stop!" The cadets froze, hearts pounding in the eerie silence. Reese's voice was calm but charged with authority. "Your next task is not physical, it is mental. You are alone now. Find your way to the extraction point. No maps, no compasses, no light. You rely only on instinct, memory, and courage." Tyler felt a cold dread spread through him. Alone, no guidance, no reassurance, just the forest, the darkness, and the unknown. He glanced at Diego and Hudson, fear mirrored in their eyes. We can't do this," Hudson whispered, voice trembling. Tyler shook his head, heart hammering. "We have to, she's testing us. Every step we take, she's watching. We can't fail." One by one, Reese Dalton separated them, pushing each cadet into the darkness alone. Tyler's pulse raced as he felt the isolation tighten around him like a vice. The forest seemed to close in, sounds amplified. The snap of twigs, the distant hoot of an owl, the rustle of unseen creatures. Every instinct screamed for caution, but every second of hesitation could mean failure. Tyler moved carefully, recalling navigation drills, terrain memorization, and survival techniques taught in passing. Yet the fear clawed at him, relentless, a predator stalking his every step. Suddenly he heard a faint sound, a soft, deliberate whistle. He froze. Reese Dalton, or something else. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up. A voice spoke, clear and calm, cutting through the fear. "You think fear is your enemy. You are wrong. Fear is your guide. Listen to it, learn from it, move with it, or it will destroy you." Tyler's heart nearly stopped. It was her. Reese Dalton was close, even in the shadows, teaching, guiding, pushing him to the edge. He took a shaky breath, letting the fear flow through him, sharpening his senses rather than paralyzing him. Hours passed in darkness and confusion. Tyler, Diego, and Hudson each faced the forest alone, encountering obstacles that challenged mind, body, and spirit. Slipping into mud, crawling under fallen logs, navigating treacherous ravines, Tyler felt every fiber of his being pushed beyond limits. By the time they converged at the extraction point, where Reese Dalton waited, standing calm, composed, unbroken, the cadets were shattered, soaked, trembling, but alive. Reese's eyes swept over them. "You endured," she said simply. "You faced fear alone, you made choices, you acted, but remember, endurance alone is not enough. You must also understand control, precision, and decisiveness under pressure. This is only the beginning." Tyler's legs shook as he fell to the ground, exhaustion overwhelming him. Yet beneath the fatigue, beneath the ache and fear, something else burned, a spark of resolve. He had survived. He had endured, and Reese Dalton had seen him do it. But the night was far from over. Reese Dalton didn't offer congratulations, didn't offer comfort. She offered the faintest hint of a smile, a subtle curl of the lips that was more promise than reassurance. And then she spoke, her voice low, deliberate, and carrying the weight of everything he had feared. "Tomorrow we escalate. The unknown run is only phase 1. You think you know fear, you think you know pain, you do not. And by the end of this training, some of you will have discovered the limits of your courage and the true cost of survival." Tyler shivered, heart hammering. He knew she was right, and deep down he realized that none of them would ever be the same. Because Lieutenant Commander Reese Dalton wasn't just testing their bodies. She was testing their souls, their resolve, their very will to survive. And the next challenge would push them beyond anything they had imagined. The morning fog had barely lifted when the cadets assembled again in the yard, muscles sore, joints stiff, and minds still haunted by the night's unknown run. Tyler, Diego, and Hudson moved in unison, though their movements were slower, deliberate, their eyes scanning for Reese Dalton's presence. They had learned that at this point in training, anticipation itself could be weaponized against them. Reese Dalton emerged silently from the mist, boots pressing against the grass with unnatural precision. Her eyes swept the cadets like a predator examining prey. There was no greeting, no warm-up, no explanation, only presence, authority, and the unmistakable weight of expectation. "Today," she said, voice cutting through the damp morning air, "we enter the next phase. You have survived fear. You have endured pain. You have tested your limits. But endurance is only the beginning. Control, precision, decision-making under pressure, these will be your true tests." She gestured toward a massive compound at the edge of the training grounds. Its walls were high, shadowed, almost ominous in the morning light. "Inside that compound," Reese continued, "is a scenario designed to push you to the limits of mind, body, and spirit. Some of you will fail. Some of you may not return unbroken, but all of you will learn what it truly means to operate under extreme conditions." Tyler's pulse quickened. The unknown run had already shattered them physically and mentally, yet Reese Dalton's words carried a dark promise. It could get far worse. The cadets were fitted with full tactical gear, helmets, vests, weapons non-lethal but realistic, radios and night vision goggles. Every piece of equipment was meticulously checked by Reese, her eyes catching mistakes no instructor had ever noticed before. One misplaced strap, one hesitation, and she corrected it without words, her gaze alone sufficient to instill a mix of fear and awe. Tyler glanced at Diego and Hudson. "We thought last night was bad," he whispered. "We were wrong. This is something else." Hudson's jaw tightened. "I don't even want to imagine what's waiting inside that compound." Diego shook his head, eyes wide with apprehension. "Whatever it is, we'll have to survive. That's all we can do." Reese Dalton led them to the edge of the compound, her presence an unspoken command. "Inside, you will face multiple objectives. Each objective will require teamwork, tactical reasoning, and the ability to act under extreme psychological pressure. Fail one and you fail the mission. Fail all and you fail yourselves." The gates of the compound loomed ahead, cold metal stretching high into the sky. Tyler's heart pounded. The unknown run had been terrifying, but at least it had been singular, survival alone. This was a different beast entirely, a controlled nightmare, designed to simulate a real-life, high-stakes mission under conditions where mistakes could mean failure or injury. Reese Dalton gestured for them to enter. "Move carefully, observe, communicate, decide, execute." The cadets stepped through the gates, and the world seemed to transform instantly. The compound was a maze of alleys, barricades, and buildings, each corridor shrouded in darkness or low light. Sounds echoed unnaturally, distant alarms, faint shouts, and the occasional crash of falling debris. The simulation was alive, breathing, testing every reflex, every instinct. The first objective was simple in theory: locate and extract a hostage, an instructor role-playing a victim, and transport them to a secure location. But simplicity vanished the moment Tyler and his team encountered the first obstacle, a simulated enemy patrol. Tyler froze for a split second as a shadow moved across the alley. Reese Dalton's voice cut over the comms. "Decision. Now. Hesitate and you are compromised." Diego swallowed, heart racing. Left or right? Tyler's mind raced. The patrol was real enough to trigger adrenaline but not lethal, yet the psychological pressure was brutal. He chose a left flank, moving silently, crouched, signaling Diego and Hudson. Every step was calculated, every breath deliberate. The patrol passed, unaware of their presence. Tyler exhaled slowly, but Reese Dalton's voice came again. Good, but not perfect. Learn from it. You cannot be detected again. The cadets pressed on, navigating corridors rigged with simulated booby traps, sudden ambushes, and timed challenges designed to crush both body and mind. Tyler felt his pulse pound, sweat streaming down his face beneath his helmet. Every instinct he had learned was tested, every decision scrutinized, and every hesitation punished, not physically but mentally. Hours passed in a blur. The cadets found the hostage, navigated trap-filled zones, and executed tactical extractions, each step under Reese Dalton's unrelenting observation. Tyler's hands trembled as he carried the simulated victim, muscles screaming, lungs burning, and heart hammering with fear and excitement. Finally, they reached the secure extraction point. Reese Dalton stood waiting, arms folded, face inscrutable. Tyler expected praise, acknowledgement, anything, but she remained silent for a long moment. Then she spoke. You have succeeded partially. You acted under pressure, made decisions, and survived. But you have also hesitated, communicated poorly at points, and allowed fear to compromise your instincts. Survival is not enough. Excellence requires perfection under pressure. You are far from it. Tyler's chest tightened. Partial success. After everything. Hours of torture, fear, exhaustion, partial. The words cut deep, fueling both determination and dread. Reese Dalton's eyes swept over them, narrowing slightly. You three, she said quietly, her voice low, carrying the weight of unspoken judgment. You have potential, but potential is not given. It is earned, and it will cost you everything you are willing to risk. Diego exhaled shakily. Everything. She's serious. Hudson's face was pale, but his eyes burned with a mix of fear and determination. I don't know how much more I can take, but I can't quit. Tyler's gaze returned to Reese Dalton. She was calm, composed, and almost untouchable, a living embodiment of every lesson they had yet to learn. And yet, beneath her gaze, he felt a spark of challenge, almost like she was daring them to push harder, endure more, and rise above everything they thought they could endure. Reese Dalton spoke again, her tone soft but sharp. Rest minimally tonight. Phase 3 begins at first light, and Phase 3 will test not only your bodies and minds but your hearts. It will force you to confront truths about yourself you have never faced, and some of you will not survive the revelations. The words left Tyler trembling, a chill crawling down his spine. Phase 3, truths, revelations, survival not just of body or mind but of something deeper, something raw. He didn't know what lay ahead, but he knew one thing: whatever came next, it would define them or destroy them. As the cadets staggered back to their dorms, muscles burning, minds spinning, Tyler realized the harsh truth. Lieutenant Commander Reese Dalton wasn't just shaping them. She was breaking them, stripping them bare, and forging something new in the fire of relentless challenge. And the fire had only just begun. The sun had barely pierced the horizon when the cadets assembled again in the training yard. Tyler, Diego, and Hudson moved sluggishly, every muscle screaming, every joint protesting the relentless pace of Reese Dalton's training. But exhaustion was only the beginning. The real challenge was what Reese had promised. Phase 3, a test of mind, body, and, most terrifying of all, spirit. Reese Dalton stood at the center, arms crossed, eyes scanning each cadet with unnerving precision. Her presence radiated authority, intensity, and the kind of calm that comes only from someone who has faced life and death countless times and emerged unbroken. Today, she began, voice cutting through the cool morning air, you will face your ultimate trial. Every instinct, every skill, every decision you have learned is about to be tested. Failure is not an option. Partial success is meaningless. You will act under pressure, make life-or-death decisions, and confront truths about yourself you have never dared to face. Tyler's stomach twisted. Words like ultimate trial and life-or-death decisions could have been exaggeration, but with Reese Dalton, exaggeration didn't exist. Every scenario she orchestrated was calibrated, precise, and lethal in its psychological and tactical demands. The cadets were led to an abandoned industrial complex on the outskirts of the academy. Rusted metal, broken windows, and shadowed alleyways created a perfect environment for tactical simulations, each corner hiding potential threats, each building a test of nerve, skill, and decision-making under stress. Reese Dalton addressed them, one last time before the exercise began. You will move in teams. You will face unexpected obstacles. You will navigate chaos and uncertainty. And above all, you will confront fear. Not the theoretical fear you practiced before, but the fear that seizes your mind, grips your heart, and threatens to paralyze your soul. You will survive only if you embrace it, master it, and use it to your advantage. Tyler felt his pulse spike. Embrace fear, master it, use it. The words echoed in his mind, sinking into every fiber of his being. He looked at Diego and Hudson. Their eyes mirrored his own apprehension, fear, and a flicker of determination that refused to be extinguished. The first obstacle emerged immediately, a dark, narrow corridor littered with debris. Each step echoed, each shadow could conceal a threat. Reese Dalton's voice came through the comms. Proceed, move carefully. Every sound, every movement is a decision. Hesitate and the consequences are yours. Tyler led his team cautiously, muscles coiled like springs, senses on high alert. A misstep could trigger a simulated mine, a trap, or an ambush. He forced himself to focus, to ignore the fear that clawed at his chest, and to act with precision. Suddenly, a simulated explosion rocked the corridor, sending dust and debris into the air. Tyler was thrown forward, crashing into the wall. Pain shot through his shoulder, but he forced himself up, remembering Reese Dalton's words, "Master fear, use it." Diego yelped as a trapdoor opened beneath him, a controlled fall that simulated injury. Hudson scrambled to help, but Tyler grabbed his arm, steadying him. "Keep moving. You'll adapt or you fail." They pressed on, navigating labyrinthine corridors, rooms filled with smoke, simulated hostages, and chaotic ambushes designed to test their every skill. Reese Dalton watched silently, always just out of reach, evaluating every hesitation, every micro-expression, every decision. Hours blurred into one continuous wave of action. Tyler's mind screamed for rest, for relief, for a pause, but none came. Each challenge was more complex than the last, navigating minefields, performing high-stakes rescues, executing tactical maneuvers under disorienting conditions. The cadets were pushed to their absolute limits, their minds taxed beyond comprehension. Then came the final stage of the trial, the decision room. A series of simultaneous scenarios played out on monitors, hostage situations, simulated attacks, tactical dilemmas, all requiring immediate decisions. Tyler, Diego, and Hudson were separated, forced to make independent calls under extreme stress, with the fate of hostages and simulated teammates hanging in the balance. Tyler froze for a heartbeat, heart pounding. Every scenario was real in its consequences, every hesitation a potential disaster. But he remembered Reese Dalton's constant presence in his mind, the lessons burned into his consciousness over the past days. Act decisively, trust instincts, embrace fear, endure beyond limits. He made his choice. Swift, calculated, precise. A split-second decision that could have failed catastrophically, but succeeded. Diego and Hudson acted similarly, each demonstrating instinct, courage, and adaptability that even they hadn't realized they possessed. Reese Dalton appeared moments later, her expression unreadable. Tyler expected critique, scolding, or perhaps a word of acknowledgement, but her eyes held only a piercing intensity, assessing, calculating, measuring. "You acted," she said finally, her voice low but cutting through the tension like a blade. "Not perfectly, not without hesitation, but you acted, and in action lies survival. Remember this, fear will always be present, doubt will always linger, chaos will always surround you. What separates those who endure from those who fail is the courage to act anyway. Tyler exhaled, muscles trembling, heart racing, adrenaline coursing through him like fire. He realized he had survived the ultimate test, but more importantly, he had grown. Not physically, though his body was pushed to the breaking point, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Reese Dalton's gaze swept over them one last time. You are not finished. This trial has only revealed what you are capable of and what you are not. Some of you will rise, some will fall, but all of you will be changed forever. Tyler felt a chill run through him. Changed forever. The words settled deep into his bones. He had survived, yes, but at what cost? Fear, exhaustion, mental strain, and the constant awareness that Reese Dalton was watching, judging, challenging, always one step ahead. Then almost imperceptibly she smiled. Not friendly, not comforting, but a smirk that promised more challenges, more growth, and more danger. Tyler glanced at Diego and Hudson. Their faces mirrored his own mixture of awe, fear, and respect. They had endured the impossible. They had survived the ultimate test. And yet, deep down, they all knew the legend of Reese Dalton wasn't finished with them. As they left the compound, sweat, mud, and grime coating their bodies, Tyler realized the truth that had been growing in his mind for days. Reese Dalton wasn't just training cadets. She was forging warriors, relentless, adaptable, decisive, and unbreakable. And the next stage, whatever it was, would demand everything they had and more. Because in the world of Lieutenant Commander Reese Dalton, survival was only the beginning. And Tyler knew with chilling clarity that the final challenge was coming, and some of them might not make it through unscathed. The early dawn light sliced through the mist like a knife as Tyler, Diego, and Hudson assembled in the training yard, their bodies battered, minds frayed, and spirits stretched to the breaking point. The past days had been an unrelenting torrent of physical exhaustion, psychological torment, and fear-soaked endurance. They had faced the unknown run, navigated the compound, and survived Reese Dalton's ultimate test. But now, a new tension hung in the air, heavy and electric, like a storm about to break. Reese Dalton emerged from the fog, her uniform immaculate despite the relentless exercises she had overseen. Every medal, ribbon, and insignia gleamed in the pale light, but her eyes, cold, sharp, and piercing, were what made the cadets shiver. She radiated authority, precision, and the intangible aura of someone who had stared death in the face and had lived to tell the story. "Cadets," she said, voice low but commanding, "you have endured, you have survived. You have acted when hesitation would have destroyed you. You have faced fear, chaos, and uncertainty, and yet, here you stand. But the question is not whether you survive the trials. It is whether you are ready to embrace the responsibility that comes with survival." Tyler's pulse quickened. Responsibility. After everything they had endured, what could be left? Reese Dalton gestured toward a waiting helicopter and a convoy of tactical vehicles. "Your final assignment begins now. This is not a simulation. This is not a drill. Today, you will experience the reality behind the training. You will act in conditions that mirror real-life high-stakes operations. Every skill you have been taught, physical, tactical, psychological, will be tested, and the stakes are real." The cadets exchanged glances. Their bodies were near breaking, their minds fatigued, and yet Reese Dalton's words carried a weight impossible to ignore. They weren't just being tested, they were being initiated. Hours later, they arrived at a remote training facility that resembled a small, volatile town. Smoke rose from simulated fires, alarms blared intermittently, and actors playing civilians and hostiles moved unpredictably. Reese Dalton's voice crackled over comms. "Objective: secure the area, extract the civilians, neutralize threats. You will operate with autonomy. You will make life-or-death decisions. Fail, and the consequences will be irreversible in this simulation. Succeed, and you will understand the meaning of true readiness." Tyler's hands shook as he adjusted his gear. Every moment of training, every obstacle, every challenge flashed through his mind. The unknown run, the compound, the mental endurance drills. He realized that all of it had been preparation for this moment. Real-world chaos condensed into a controlled, but lethal, environment. The cadets moved through the simulated town, executing tactical maneuvers under extreme pressure. Every decision mattered. Every hesitation could end in simulated casualties. Tyler's heart pounded as he coordinated with Diego and Hudson, calling out movements, guiding the extraction of civilians, and neutralizing threats. The lines between simulation and reality blurred, and fear became a tool rather than a hindrance. At one point, Tyler spotted a civilian trapped under rubble, the hostile presence advancing. Adrenaline surged, and he remembered Reese Dalton's constant lessons: act decisively, trust instincts, embrace fear. He moved swiftly, lifting debris, pulling the civilian to safety, and signaling his team. The precision and courage he displayed surprised even him. Diego and Hudson performed similarly, overcoming simulated ambushes, navigating obstacles, and making rapid-fire tactical decisions. Reese Dalton observed from a distance, silent, evaluating every action, every instinct, every reaction. Hours passed in a blur of controlled chaos. By the end of the exercise, the town had been secured, civilians evacuated, threats neutralized. Tyler's body was exhausted, every joint sore, every muscle trembling. But beneath the fatigue was a surge of something new: confidence, clarity, and understanding. They had not just survived, they had acted, led, and conquered fear. Reese Dalton approached, her steps deliberate, her gaze unreadable. You have completed the final exercise, and now it is time you understand why. The cadets turned toward her, hearts pounding. Tyler felt a knot tighten in his stomach. The revelation she promised could change everything. You have endured extreme physical strain, psychological torment, and moral challenges, Reese continued. You have faced fear, chaos, and uncertainty at every turn. And throughout it all, I observed not just your skills, but your character, your resilience, and your capacity to lead under pressure. Tyler's pulse raced. Character, resilience, leadership. He realized now that all the pain, fear, and endurance had a purpose far beyond simple training. You were chosen, Reese Dalton said, her voice calm but powerful. Not because you are perfect, not because you are invincible, but because you have potential. The potential to rise to extraordinary circumstances. Potential is meaningless without testing, without fire, without fear. And now you have been forged. Tyler felt a surge of awe. Forged. They had endured literal and psychological crucibles, emerging not broken but tempered. Reese Dalton's gaze narrowed slightly, locking onto Tyler, Diego, and Hudson. You three, she said, have been tested more rigorously than any others. You have been pushed to the edge of fear, exhaustion, and doubt. And yet you acted. You endured. You learned. You grew. A silence settled over the yard, heavy and charged. Tyler realized the truth. This was the culmination of days, nights, and trials, all designed not to break them, but to awaken the warriors inside them. And now, Reese Dalton continued, a small, almost imperceptible smile curling her lips, you understand what it truly means to survive. But more importantly, you understand what it means to act with courage, precision, and integrity when everything else tells you to hesitate. You have learned the hardest lesson of all. Survival is only part of the equation. Leadership, decisiveness, and resilience are the rest. Tyler exhaled, a mix of relief, exhaustion, and pride washing over him. Diego and Hudson mirrored his feelings. They had endured the impossible, faced their deepest fears, and emerged stronger, sharper, and more capable than they had ever imagined. Reese Dalton stepped closer, her presence commanding, almost electric. Remember this, she said quietly but with immense power. The world beyond this academy will test you in ways even I cannot control. You will face fear, chaos, and uncertainty. You will confront situations that defy logic, challenge morals, and demand action. And in every one of those moments you will carry the lessons you learned here. You will endure, you will act, and you will survive. Tyler felt the weight of her words sink deep into his bones. He realized that Reese Dalton hadn't just been training them, she had been preparing them for life itself. Every trial, every test, every moment of fear and exhaustion had been a lesson in resilience, courage, and the human capacity to rise above impossible circumstances. And then, as the fog began to lift, and the first light of day illuminated the training yard, Reese Dalton spoke one final time. You are not cadets anymore. You are warriors in the making, and when the world demands the impossible, you will be ready. For the first time, Tyler saw a flicker of warmth in her eyes, a subtle acknowledgement of their transformation. And in that moment, he understood the full truth. The legendary SEAL officer had not cornered them to intimidate or dominate. She had done it to awaken something deeper, something raw and powerful within them. Tyler, Diego, and Hudson stood together, exhausted, mud-streaked, and trembling, yet undeniably changed. They had survived. They had endured. They had grown. And as Reese Dalton turned, her silhouette fading into the morning light, Tyler realized that the legend was not just in her past deeds, but in the way she forged the next generation to rise, endure, and conquer. The cadets had been tested beyond belief, pushed to the edge of human endurance, and now, standing in the dawn of a new day, they knew one undeniable truth. Survival was only the beginning. Becoming extraordinary demanded fear, fire, and unyielding resolve, and they had learned how to embrace it. And somewhere in the shadows, Tyler could feel the spark of the next challenge already flickering, waiting for the next test. But for now, they had survived. They had endured, and they had been forged by the legendary SEAL officer, Lieutenant Commander Reese Dalton.